Prologue. On a cold November night in 1987, somewhere in the rural Midwest, a small community television station vanished from the airwaves. WFXK TV Channel 6 had been the pride of Harmon County, broadcasting local news, high school sports, and church services to a handful of farming towns. It was run out of a one-story brick building on Elm Street, where volunteers took turns directing, hosting, and manning the cameras. One evening during the nightly sign-off, the screen went white. A shrill tone blared for exactly 17 seconds, and the feed cut to static. Phone calls flooded the station, but no one answered. A sheriff's deputy sent to check found the front door unlocked, lights on, coffee still steaming in half-empty mugs, and no sign of the staff. The broadcast control room smelled faintly of ozone. Files, tapes, equipment were all in place, except for one. An aging analog transmitter bolted to a metal rack that hummed softly, as if idling. WFXK's disappearance became a footnote in local history, quickly swallowed by bigger stories. The town filed a report. The building was boarded up. Children dared each other to break in and see the abandoned studio, but most turned away at the door, spooked by the cold air and the whispers they swore came from within the walls. No bodies were ever found. No one ever discovered what happened to the volunteers. The call letters were reassigned to another station. It was as if Channel 6 had never existed. In 2026, a college senior named Alex March stumbled upon an old VHS tape labeled WFXK, last broadcast, at a flea market in Cleveland. Alex wasn't superstitious. They were majoring in communications and obsessed with analog media. The tape promised a piece of lost broadcast history. Alex bought it for $5 and took it back to their apartment. That night, they inserted the tape into a dusty VCR, pressed play, and a blue screen flickered to life. For a moment, there was nothing, just faint static. Then the footage began, and Alex's life split in two. The time before watching that tape, and the time after. Chapter 1. The Tape. The video opened with a grainy shot of a news desk. Two anchors sat before a painted countryside backdrop. The man had thick glasses and a pencil behind one ear. The woman wore a plaid blazer with shoulder pads. They smiled too widely. A graphic of a sunrise in the bottom right corner read, "Good morning, Harmon County." "Welcome back," the male anchor said, his voice flat. "This is our last broadcast. We're so glad you've tuned in." Alex leaned forward. They had never heard of a station announcing a final broadcast like this. The woman spoke next. "We have a special presentation for you today," she said, and her gaze briefly flicked off camera, as if seeking approval. "We'll be sharing our favorite memories from the past 20 years of WFXK. But first, a message from our sponsors." Static filled the screen. The image cracked, lines of white crawling upward, but there was no advertising. Instead, a black title card appeared with white typewriter text. "This program may not be suitable for all audiences." The card remained for 12 seconds, then cut to a shot of the station's control room. It looked as Alex imagined. Soundproofed walls, racks of equipment, blinking lights. In the foreground stood an old analog transmitter, its metal casing scratched. It was not the sleek digital equipment Alex used at university, but something from an earlier age, built to last. On the front panel, a glowing red LED spelled out the numbers 333. A young technician in a WFXK polo shirt stepped into frame and turned to the camera. "For a long time," he said, "we were the only light in the dark. We broadcasted what mattered: births, graduations, fundraisers, funerals. We were part of your lives. But there's something we haven't told you. He reached out and flipped a switch on the transmitter. We weren't the only ones broadcasting. A low hum vibrated through the speakers. The picture shook. The camera panned slowly over the transmitter. As the lens focused on its glowing numbers, the red LED flickered and changed from 333 to 333.3 FM. Late at night, the technician continued, his voice quieter now. When everyone went home, we heard another signal. It was faint, like whispers at the edge of our frequency. We recorded it, but we never played it on air. Until now. Behind him, the monitors showed the broadcasting booth. The anchors had gone. The studio lights cast long shadows. The technician looked directly into the camera. We always wondered what would happen if we turned up the volume, but we never did. You're going to hear it first. He twisted a knob on the transmitter. The hum grew louder, then resolved into something like a voice. It sounded distant, underwater, speaking in syllables Alex couldn't understand. A cold shiver ran down their spine. The video's time code blinked at the bottom of the screen. 0 hours, 13 minutes, 37 seconds. The hum modulated. Words emerged, warped but decipherable. Keep watching. The screen went black. Chapter 2. The Static. Alex rewound the tape and watched the segment again. This time they paused at the moment the transmitter's display showed 333.3 FM. The number didn't make sense. FM frequencies in the US range from 88.1 to 107.9. 333.3 wasn't just illegal, it was impossible. Yet on the tape, the LED panel displayed it clearly. Curiosity gnawed at Alex. They searched online for WFXK and Channel 6. There were a handful of posts on local history forums, a scanned newspaper clipping about the station's disappearance, and a conspiracy thread speculating about government experiments. Nothing explained the strange broadcast. No mention of 333.3 FM. Alex posted about the tape and received a few skeptical replies. One user linked to an archived article about number stations, mysterious transmissions on shortwave radio that broadcast coded messages. Another pointed out that analog equipment could be manipulated to display any number. Perhaps the 333.3 was an in-joke. That night, Alex couldn't sleep. The whispered phrase, "Keep watching," looped in their mind. At 2 a.m., they got out of bed, turned on their old radio, and dialed through the FM band out of habit. Nothing. White noise, pop stations, country music, news, talk shows. Alex's fingers twitched toward the analog dial's edge. On a whim, they twisted it past 107.9, past the end of the frequency band, into static. To their surprise, the needle moved beyond the printed numbers on the faceplate. The radio crackled with a low hum. Then, faintly, a voice emerged. Alex's skin prickled. They leaned in. The voice whispered, "You were told to keep watching." Alex snapped off the radio. The room fell silent except for their own breathing. They laughed nervously. It was late. They were tired, and their mind was playing tricks. There was no 333.3 FM. Radios didn't pick up frequencies beyond the spectrum, but the voice had sounded real. It had answered them. A mixture of fear and intrigue bubbled. Alex turned the radio back on and moved the dial again. This time, as soon as they passed 107.9, the radio's tuning meter flickered red. A high-pitched tone pierced the air, then a cascade of whispers. Alex heard snatches of words, names, places, numbers. One stood out. Alex. They turned off the radio and stared at it. The urge to tune in again warred with the fear of hearing more. When they finally managed to sleep, their dreams were filled with static and voices just out of reach. Chapter 3. The Broadcast. The next morning, Alex went to class bleary-eyed. The lecture was on broadcast theory, but they couldn't focus. They kept thinking about the radio. During a break, they pulled out their phone and searched for 333.3 FM signal. Surprisingly, a blog post from 2009 popped up. It described a man named Jeremy Hunt, a ham radio operator in Indiana, who claimed to have picked up a mysterious transmission at 333.3 FM. He said the signal contained voices whispering predictions of future events. The post had been dismissed by commenters as a hoax. Jeremy never posted again. Alex's heart rate quickened. They clicked the blogger's profile and found an obituary from 2010. Jeremy had died in a car accident on a rural road. The local paper said he'd lost control on a clear night. No alcohol involved. There were rumors he'd been looking down at his radio when he crashed. That evening, Alex sat at their desk with a notebook and a digital recorder. They turned on the radio and tuned past the FM band until the static became a whisper. A voice emerged, garbled, but growing clearer. Alex hit record. The voice said, "February 10th, southbound train, 14 injured." Alex blinked. Today was January 27th. February 10th was 2 weeks away. They scribbled the message down, unsure whether to laugh or worry. Was this a prank? A random broadcast of nonsense phrases? They listened longer. The voice continued, a monotone reciting fragments. June, 37 degrees. New York City. Lights out. 37 hours. Do not trust the man in the brown hat. Your father hid the letter in the attic. At that last one, Alex's hand froze. Their father had died when they were 15. He had never mentioned a hidden letter, but he had been secretive about his childhood. The attic of the house in Dayton had been stuffed with boxes. Alex had never gone through all of them. The voice droned on until static swallowed it. Alex shut off the radio and sat in silence. The messages were specific, some trivial, others ominous. If the broadcast was real, could it be predicting things? They thought of the tape of the vanished station. The technician had said they heard whispers they never played. Why had they recorded it? Had they used it? Had someone at WFXK listened and tried to change events? Did the station disappear because of what they heard? Sleep was elusive that night. Alex paced their apartment, replaying the recording, analyzing every word. What if they ignored it? Would something happen anyway? Could they warn people? Could they test it with something small? Eventually, exhaustion took over. They drifted off at dawn, their mind heavy with voices. Chapter 4. The Letter. The next weekend, Alex drove to Dayton to visit their mother. The trip was under the guise of dropping off groceries, but the real reason was to check the attic. After dinner, Alex asked casually, "Mom, did Dad ever leave anything for me? A letter or something?" She looked up, surprised. "A letter?" "No, honey, why?" "Just curious," Alex said. "I was thinking about him." Her expression softened. "He wrote journals, but he never gave me anything for you." When she went to bed, Alex climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. The air smelled of dust and insulation. They pulled the string on the single bulb and began opening boxes, pushing aside old clothes and holiday decorations. After an hour, they found a small tin box labeled AM in black marker. Alex's initials. Hands trembling, they opened it. Inside were two things: a folded letter and a Polaroid photograph. The photo showed their father as a young man standing in front of a familiar red brick building with Channel 6's call letters on the sign, WFXK TV. Alex unfolded the letter. The handwriting was rushed, jagged. "Alex, if you find this, it means I couldn't figure out how to stop it. I went to that station when I was your age. They had a transmitter that picked up a signal from somewhere else. I thought I could use it. I thought I could change things. I was wrong. Every time I listened, something got worse. I tried to warn people, but they didn't believe me. The more I listened, the more it knew about me. It followed me home. It followed me into my dreams. When your mother got pregnant, I smashed the radio. I thought it was over. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear it in the static. I'm sorry. Whatever you do, don't try to use it. Dad." Alex sat on the attic floor, the letter in one hand, the photo in the other. Their father's secret life, his connection to the station, the warnings. It was all too much. A sense of dread settled over them. They remembered the voice on the radio saying, "Your father hid the letter in the attic." The broadcast had known. It had reached across decades to whisper a clue. Or, more chilling, it had created the clue by prompting their father to hide it. Alex put the letter back in the box and tucked the photo into their pocket. Back in their room, they stared at the ceiling and thought of the station. Their father had tried to stop it and failed. The volunteers at WFXK had vanished. Jeremy Hunt had died. What made Alex think they could do any better? Chapter 5. The Predictions. 2 weeks passed. February 10th arrived. Alex watched the news at noon with a knot in their stomach. At 12:45 p.m., a breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom of the screen. Train collision in Indiana. 14 injured. Alex's breath caught. The voice had been correct. The sense of horror and awe mingled. What else had the broadcast predicted? They pulled out the notebook and looked at the other messages. 37 degrees. New York City. Lights out. 37 hours. It was winter. 37 degrees meant near freezing. A blackout? A meteorological event? And do not trust the man in the brown hat. It sounded like a bad movie line, but now Alex felt the weight of each word. Was it a warning meant specifically for them? They decided to listen again, but with a plan. They would record everything, transcribe it, and track the predictions. If they could prove the broadcast predicted events, maybe they could convince someone to help. Authorities, scientists, anyone. It couldn't remain a secret. But fear gnawed. The more they listened, the more attention they gave, the stronger the connection might become. The voice seemed to feed on attention. Would ignoring it starve it? Would listening feed it? Alex's father wrote that he destroyed the radio. Maybe that was the only solution. That night, Alex turned on the radio again. They tuned past 107.9, and the static resolved into the hum. The voice spoke, no longer garbled, but clear, as if the transmitter had grown stronger. "Good evening, Alex," it whispered. "We are live. Thank you for listening. We have important updates." Alex's blood ran cold. It knew their name. It had been personal before, but this was direct. 2 cars will collide at the intersection of Pine and Maple in 15 minutes, the voice said. "No one will be hurt. A chicken will cross the road there. Don't laugh. You needed to know." Alex scribbled the message. They flipped to the next page as the voice continued. "On March 3rd, it will snow in Florida. This will be the first time on record. People will build snowmen on Miami Beach. It will make them happy. Happiness feeds us too." Alex blinked. Snow in Florida in March seemed impossible but harmless. The voice went on, mixing trivial predictions with dark ones. "A young girl named Lucy will lose her tooth tomorrow. She will put it under her pillow. The tooth fairy does not exist, Alex. But something else will be watching. Beware of the man in the brown hat. He will smile at you at the coffee shop on Monday. Do not smile back. He carries something you don't want." The lights in New York City will go out at 8:12 p.m. on June 14th. The blackout will last 37 hours. In the darkness, people will be kind to each other. They will share food. They will tell stories. But some will go missing. With each statement, Alex felt a mixture of disbelief and dread. The broadcast was a bizarre blend of the mundane and the catastrophic. Why warn about a man in a hat and a chicken crossing the road? Why provide specific times? And why predict random, petty events? Then Alex realized attention. By telling them trivial things that came true, the voice would gain credibility. It would hook them with small wins, then feed them bigger, more important details, making them rely on it. It was creating dependency. It was training them to trust it. Alex snapped off the radio. Their hands shook. They had two choices: ignore the predictions, risking something dangerous happening, or listen, feed the voice, and risk losing themselves like their father. It felt like an unwinnable game. Their father had smashed the radio. Perhaps destruction was the only way. Chapter 6. The Man in the Brown Hat. On Monday, Alex sat in a coffee shop near campus, trying to focus on homework. They had told themselves they would avoid the place, but curiosity won. The voice had said someone in a brown hat would smile at them. Part of them wanted to see if the prediction came true, to feel the thrill of verifying it. Another part wanted to run. At 10:30 a.m., the door opened and a man walked in. He looked to be in his 60s, with a gray beard and a brown fedora. He ordered a latte and turned. His gaze swept the room and landed on Alex. He smiled. It was a polite, warm smile that any other day would have seemed normal. Alex's heart pounded. The voice's warning echoed. Do not trust the man in the brown hat. He carries something you don't want. Alex forced themselves to keep a neutral expression and returned to their laptop. The man collected his drink and sat at a table near the window. He pulled a newspaper from his briefcase and unfolded it, but his eyes occasionally lifted toward Alex. After 15 minutes, he stood and approached. "Excuse me," he said kindly. "Is this seat taken?" He gestured to the chair at Alex's table. Alex hesitated. "Actually, I'm meeting someone." They lied. "No problem," he said, and returned to his table. After another 10 minutes, he left, tipping his hat as he passed. Alex exhaled. Was that the entire danger? A conversation? They hadn't smiled back. Nothing had happened. They felt foolish and relieved. Maybe the warning was overblown. An hour later, as Alex packed up to leave, the barista approached them. "Hey, did you see that guy with the brown hat?" she whispered. Alex nodded. "He left this," she said, holding a manila envelope. "He said it was for you. How he knew your name, I don't know. But he knew." Alex's stomach dropped. They took the envelope. It was unmarked. Inside was a DVD with a sticky note attached. "You'll want to see this. D." Alex sat back down and slid the DVD into their laptop. The file that played was a news report from a local station dated March 12, 1987. The footage showed a young version of their father standing outside a burning building. Flames licked the night sky. "We can't go in there," He shouted at a reporter, "It's broadcasting. You can't stop it." The reporter's voice shook. "Sir? What's broadcasting?" "Channel 6!" their father yelled. "It's not the same. It's playing things that haven't happened yet. Get away from here." Alex paused the video, heart racing. The man in the brown hat had known their father. He had left them evidence of the fire. He had known they would be at the coffee shop. Suddenly, the warning made sense. He carries something you don't want. Knowledge. The man carried knowledge that would pull Alex deeper. The voice had warned them, not out of care, but to keep control. It didn't want competition. Didn't want Alex to receive help from someone else. The man had tried to break through and deliver information. The voice had tried to isolate Alex by sowing distrust. Alex realized the danger wasn't physical. It was psychological. The voice wanted them dependent and alone, trusting only it. The man in the brown hat was an ally. Alex had avoided him because they listened to the broadcast. The voice had manipulated them. Rage and shame bloomed. They had let the signal dictate their actions. Chapter 7. The Fire. Determined to learn more, Alex searched for the man in the brown hat. The note was signed, Disoy. It could have been any initial, but Alex had a hunch. They went back to the blog about Jeremy Hunt and looked through the comments again. One commenter named Deacon1970 had written, "Don't trust the voice. It lies." The comment had one reply, "What do you know, old man?" Alex clicked Deacon's profile. He lived in Michigan and posted about ham radios. His last post was in 2019. Alex sent a message. "Hi, my name is Alex March. I think you knew my father. I need to talk to you about WFXK. They doubted he would respond. 2 days later, a reply came. "We shouldn't talk here. Meet me at the Harmon County Library on Saturday. Noon. D." Alex booked a hotel in the county where their father grew up. They told their mother they were visiting a friend. At the library, a man in a brown fedora waited near the reading room. He looked older than in the coffee shop, his beard whiter. "Alex," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Deacon. I worked with your dad." They sat at a corner table. Deacon took off his hat. "I left you the DVD," he whispered. "I figured you'd ignore me because of the voice. It always tries to keep listeners from connecting with each other." "You know about the broadcast?" Alex asked. Deacon nodded. "We called it the frequency. When we found it at WFXK, we thought it was some government signal. Turns out it's older. Maybe it comes from another dimension. Maybe it's alive. It doesn't matter. It wants one thing: to be heard. The more you listen, the more it influences your life. It starts with accurate predictions to earn your trust. Then it feeds you misinformation to isolate you. Wants to replace your relationships, your intuition, with itself." "Why would it do that?" Alex asked. "Because attention is food," Deacon said simply. "It's a parasite." "How did the station disappear?" Deacon's eyes clouded. "We tried to shut it down. Your dad, me, and 2 others. We thought burning the studio would destroy the transmitter, but the frequency had already connected to something else. The fire didn't stop it. The others disappeared. Your dad and I got out. He smashed his radio, left town, and never looked back. I moved away too. I've been listening from time to time, trying to warn people online, but the voice gets to them first. It sends them to their deaths or drives them mad. I couldn't save Jeremy. He told me about you before he died. Said if you ever found the tape, I should help you. I wrote him a letter, but I don't think he got it. Now I'm trying to help you. Destroy your radio. Destroy the tape. Don't listen again. Alex sat back, mind reeling. If I destroy it, will it stop? Deacon grimaced. I don't know. It always finds another way in. But if you cut the connection, maybe it'll be weaker. Maybe you'll live. What if we could broadcast something else? Alex said suddenly. What if we filled the frequency with noise? Starved it? Deacon's eyes lit up. We tried something like that, broadcasting constant white noise to drown it out. It worked briefly. Then the frequency started using the noise to carry messages. It adapts. Silence fell. So there's no way to beat it, Alex whispered. I don't know, Deacon admitted, but there's a way to survive. Ignore it. Don't listen. It can't touch you if you're not tuned in. It can whisper all it wants, but if no one hears, it's powerless. Chapter 8. Static Hunger. Back home, Alex stared at the radio. Destroying it felt like admitting defeat, but maybe it was the only option. They took a hammer and smashed the dial. The glass shattered. The tuner snapped. They broke the speaker and the circuit board until the radio was a pile of bent metal and plastic. Then they taped the VHS tape in its case and dropped it into the trash chute in their apartment building. For the next week, the apartment was quiet. The whispering faded to a memory. Alex went to class, met friends, slept better. They told Deacon they had destroyed it. He wrote back, "Good. Now forget it ever existed." But at night, when the city quieted, Alex sometimes heard a faint hiss from the walls. It sounded like static. One evening, while cooking dinner, their phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from an unfamiliar address with no subject. Alex opened it. The body contained one line of text. "Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back after these messages." Alex threw the phone across the room. It skidded to a stop under the table. Their heart hammered. They considered changing their email, their number, moving away. But could they outrun something that traveled through static? Could they outrun their own curiosity? They deleted the email and blocked the sender. For days, nothing. Then, one morning, the television in the living room, an old CRT they used for retro games, flickered to life on its own. The screen was blue, just like the opening of the WFXK tape. White text appeared. This program may not be suitable for all audiences. Alex unplugged the TV. They threw it in the hallway. Their breath came fast. The frequency was finding other ways. It wasn't tied to a single device. It was an idea, a pattern. Once you knew about it, it could use any static to reach you. You could never truly destroy all static. Radio, television, white noise machines, even silence held space for it. Alex realized the fight wasn't about smashing equipment. It was about refusing to engage. The frequency needed them to listen actively. Passive noise wasn't enough. It wanted ears, eyes, minds. If Alex never responded, never tuned in, never believed, it would starve. The question was, could they ignore the whispers when they came? Could they resist the temptation to know the future? Could they accept uncertainty, tragedy, and joy without trying to control them? Chapter 9. The Blackout. June 14th arrived hot and humid. New York City thrummed with energy. Alex watched the news warily, expecting the blackout the frequency had predicted. At 8 p.m., as the sun set behind skyscrapers, the city lights flickered. At 8:12, they went dark. Millions of people gasped. Traffic lights died. Subways stopped. Elevators froze. New York became a sea of red brake lights and cell phone flashlights. News outlets speculated about causes: overloaded grids, sabotage, freak storms. They rolled footage of people helping strangers, directing traffic, sharing water. For 37 hours, the city functioned on kindness. No major crime spikes, no riots. Neighbors held block parties with battery-powered radios. Children played in fire hydrant sprays. In the darkness, people connected. And indeed, some people went missing. A few older residents on high floors died when oxygen tanks failed. A group of teens exploring an underground tunnel never returned. The blackout was exactly as predicted. Alex sat in their apartment, watching a battery-operated lamp flicker. They felt a strange sense of peace. The frequency had been right, but it didn't matter. People adapted. They helped each other. The future had unfolded without Alex's input. The world continued. They didn't need to know everything to survive. Chapter 10. The Final Message. Years passed. Alex graduated, worked in television production, and eventually left the industry for a quieter career in archives. They married, had a child, and moved to a small town far from big transmitters. Sometimes on quiet nights, Alex heard static when turning on an old device. They felt the pull to listen. They always turned away. Deacon wrote occasionally until his death in 2034. He never mentioned the frequency in his letters after that first meeting. One rainy evening, decades later, when Alex was 65, they received a package with no return address. Inside was a VHS tape labeled WFXK, Final Broadcast. The handwriting matched their father's. There was a note tucked under the case. For my grandchild. Only watch if you need to remember why we forget. Alex's hands shook. Their child, now an adult, was out that evening. Their grandchild, Lily, 5 years old, was in the living room playing quietly. Alex felt the weight of choice. They could destroy the tape without watching. They could watch it and decide later. They could pass the burden. They remembered their father's plea. Don't try to use it. They remembered the voice's hunger. They thought of the years of peace they gained by ignoring it. And they thought of the cycle. Would it never end? Were they doomed to pass it down, warning each generation to ignore the static? Alex carried the tape to the kitchen. They took a hammer and smashed it. Magnetic tape spilled out like black ribbon. Alex gathered it and threw it into the trash. They felt no regret. Lily looked up from her toys, eyes curious. "What are you doing, Grandpa?" "Taking out the trash," Alex said with a smile. "Some things are better left forgotten." They hugged Lily and went back to the living room. Outside, rain tapped on the windows in a steady rhythm. Somewhere, far away, a signal whispered through static, searching for ears to feed on. But in this house, there was only the laughter of a child and the beating of a heart, content with uncertainty. Epilogue. Legends like the frequency endure because they tap into a fundamental fear, that there are forces beyond our understanding manipulating the lives we lead. Whether the frequency is a metaphor for the seductive pull of information, a cautionary tale about trying to control the uncontrollable, or an entity from elsewhere craving attention, its lesson is clear. The desire to know the future can consume the present. The hunger for certainty can feed a monster. On an online forum in 2056, a user named Analog Kid posted a story about a strange frequency beyond the FM band. Most dismissed it as creepypasta. One commenter wrote, "Never heard of it, but it sounds cool." Another replied, "Don't listen, it's not worth it." A week later, the thread was deleted. A moderator posted a warning. "We do not discuss 333.3 FM here." A new member asked why. No one answered. The community moved on. The frequency waited.